Today we are speaking about power dynamic, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm Pierre and I'm here with my co-host Elle. Hello Elle.
Hi.
What would you like to? How would you like to start about power dynamic and why actually we decided to speak about this topic?
Well, for starters, it's just that we had this conversation last week where, like how there is differences in power dynamic in our daily lives. Like starting from when you were younger, actually, your parents has a higher power over you compared to little Pierre or the little toddler you, because you know um, at that moment, at that time of your life, they're raising you. You still don't know what's going on with the world and how to be in the world, and yeah, they just have a higher power dynamic, but that is for positive, but sometimes it's negative as well, unfortunately. But yeah, and then as we grow older, we go to school, that we have power dynamics, differences in power dynamics when it comes to the school versus us, um, to teachers and the students. And now when we start to go to work, there's also our bosses, and then the employees. There is just um, power dynamic where one has less power compared to the other. So yeah, we just realized that that is really really common, like in our daily lives. So this is the reason why we started speaking about power dynamics and everything. So what can you say about it, Mr. Pierre?
So actually, you are absolutely right. Like we have power dynamic everywhere. First, obviously, starting by our parents, and I believe that it's in a good way. And also with our managers, our bosses, even in a couple, sometimes there is some kind of power dynamic as well. Especially, I don't know, in some couples, like for some of them, maybe men think they are more powerful or they have more like, okay, especially before I would say, like maybe the case of my parents or like my father would say, I work hard, I bring the money, so you have to. I mean, this is kind of a power dynamic in some way. So you have to do, I don't know, to raise the kids, and me not involved. But I mean, power dynamic has probably a lot of different definitions. Obviously, um, in my day-to-day job as well, obviously when you have power dynamic, obviously in power dynamic you have power. So power, you need sometimes obviously to have some kind of hierarchy, but when you have power, you at some point when you give power to someone, that person will always abuse to his power. So in my case, in my day-to-day job, obviously, like your manager says to you things you have to do, and you have to give everything on time. You always have to be on time in meetings, always on time at work when you start working. Don't leave earlier, otherwise you have to ask permissions to your manager. But your manager, I mean, it's not the case of all managers, but some of them would be always late at meetings. They won't necessarily ask for permissions for having, I don't know, being late or leaving earlier, although they also have someone, like another manager or the CEO of the company. But they would do things they don't accept to the persons, I mean, to the people they manage. And this is obviously like the abuse to the power, I would say. It's the same in some countries, presidents, like they would do things like they would do whatever they wish, or they would abuse to the money they receive from the tax, and they will never allow the citizens, I mean the people of the country doing it, but they will do it because they have power. And I believe if you have power, sometimes you tend to abuse to the power. Probably it's a human sense. It depends also of ethic and of the kind of person you are. Some people tend to abuse more to power they have than others, but power dynamic is always like sometimes it doesn't seem fair all the time. It's the same when you are a kid actually. Now power dynamic is always there and will probably always be there. It's kind of invisible. When I was a kid, it was kind of invisible. But I remember when I was a kid, I was saying to my parents, "Oh, why I have to go to bed at 9 p.m.?" Okay, I was 6 years old maybe, but I don't understand why my parents could go to bed later and not me. Or like, oh, why you decide for me what time I have to eat, and why for you you decide, like my mom was saying, okay, let's eat at 7 p.m. So why my mom could decide but not me? This is about a bit of power dynamic, but you need this kind of discipline as well, especially when you have, I mean, me too, if I will be a dad and if I have a few kids, you have to set some rules. But okay, you set the rules, not the kids. This is also a kind of a power dynamic. You, because of your position, you are eligible to say what others can do, but not the other way around. So it can be good at some point, but it has to be fair as well. And I believe if you set the rules, you have to follow them as well, because you should always give the example, because otherwise you'll be surprised why I set some rules but people don't listen to them or don't do them or don't apply to them. If you don't follow them, why people would follow them as well? Like the same, if my parents, I was lucky, I had parents who were eating healthy, but I know so many parents, they say to the kids, you shouldn't eat junk food, you should eat healthy or whatsoever. But they eat junk food all day long. They go to fast food every day, and they say to their kids to not eat pizza every day, you see? So it doesn't make much sense. Or they say to their kids, you should never smoke, but they smoke. They don't give the right example. Or they say, oh, you shouldn't curse, but they curse when they are with their friends. So the kids hear them swearing, and if they swear, why do they say to the kids not to swear? So it's kind of a power dynamic. They say you cannot do that, but they do what they say the others cannot do. The same when you have a manager who says to their employees, to their colleagues actually, because they are just manager, they say you should always be on time to meetings. But if they are always late to meetings, well, they should also show the right example as well.
Yeah, so I think what we want, apparently, is there is, as we have been mentioning, power dynamics exist, but it shows when things like these happen. So what we really want actually is modeling, right? It's because when parents say, eat your vegetables, then the parents should also be eating vegetables. Like for sure, they said eat your vegetables. It's like, like they command you or something, but when you set a good example and you explain the reason why, then it would be less of a power dynamic but more of like a teamwork. Do you get me? It's like a modeling. And it's the same with being a manager. It's like, yeah, I want you to be on time during meetings, and then you are always on time in meetings. You walk your talk. You say be on time, always never cancel, or at least don't cancel meetings just because you can.
Yes.
No, you set a good example, you model. And so your colleagues that you supervise or you're responsible of would be, like, wow, okay, my manager is like this, then I should be doing it as well. Because, that's called walking your talk. Like, walk your
Yes.
talk. And, that's really important because it creates an environment of being in a collaboration, being in a team. So it's really nice. I mean, yes, there's still a power dynamic. Of course there is. They're parents. they're much experienced than you. Your manager probably is much more experienced than you, or probably they know a bit better than you. I'm not sure about that. But then, it's in the end, the parents are responsible for the children, and the manager, in some sense, are responsible for their colleagues, and you want, but in both situation, you want people to flourish.
That's
You want your child to
right.
flourish. You want your colleague to flourish. So when you set a good example, you're setting them to a good path. It's like never be late for meetings, and they will never be late for meetings for when, let's say, they resign and move to another company. Like you set the habits of having good. So when power is used in the right way, there is a power dynamic. But when used in the right way, it creates like a better person, and you are a better person as well for having for using your power in a better way, in a good way, for others. So it's really, yeah. I have a friend actually, and she's going to school, and the administration, I'm not sure who she contacts, but usually during payment of tuitions, they're so adamant and a bit assertive when it comes to um getting the tuition fee from my friend. Is like saying, hey, in 5 days your tuition fee is due, and if you don't pay on time, we're gonna fine you $200, some stuff like that. So you see, it's like, okay, for you, you're a student, it's your responsibility to pay on time, which is okay. That's a good reminder. And then at the end, the accounts or the administration don't give you receipts. Like, it's a
I
give and
see.
take situation.
So
Yeah.
as soon as they receive the payment,
Like, okay,
they
thanks.
will never give you a
Yeah.
receipt, and maybe you need it. I mean, the friend or I mean the students need the receipt
Yeah, of course.
for the.
Yeah, it's a receipt is like
It's
an
important,
acknowledgement.
indeed.
An acknowledgement
So
for
they don't
receiving
do
the
their
payment.
job well,
They don't do their job
but
well.
they force the students to
Pay on.
they even threat. I mean, they
Yeah,
threaten
impose
them
a
a bit.
fine. Yeah.
Yes.
And when it comes to her assignments as well, they have a deadline, but then, wow, you do your best to do your assignment, but then in the end, the teachers don't check it. It's
I
like
see.
she has some 1 year after assessment that hasn't been checked. Like, there is there is problem there, because you see, wow, I
Indeed.
worked so hard, you gave me a deadline, but then how come you don't have a deadline?
I know.
They
Yes. So they don't allow you to have an exception, or they don't, they don't care about any excuses you might have. If you cannot submit your assessment on time, but they just don't do their job well, and they're not serious. And if they say, oh yeah, don't worry, we will review your assessment next week, actually they won't. And yeah, so this is definitely abusing to power dynamic.
Yeah.
So
it is.
power dynamic is like everything in the world. You have something, you have a kind of structure or a way how we behave in the society, but you have to do it aesthetically. Like, don't do things you don't want others to do to you. So if you follow that simple rule, if you are just ethic and nice, and you will always do things what you believe is good, but if you care about people, that's fine. Then you use it well. But if you just care, if you're just selfish, and you just use the power dynamic into your advantage, but you don't care about like the others expecting what they expect from you, what you have to deliver, that's obviously wrong.
Yeah. So now that I think about it, it's 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 how society actually is. The system of society is more or less the same.
It's so fragile, actually.
Yes. And now that you're looking at it at like a really personal microscopic difference of power dynamic, like parents to child, it's like, when you see, well, it's not all the same. Like not all abuse the power dynamic, but some do. So it's, if we're not going to use our power properly, then you know it's society will never be perfect. That's it. And
Indeed.
we can't prevent it because some are just really into putting out their power to people they know they can control. So it's like, yeah, society will never be perfect, and sometimes it's really hard. Like even government versus people, it's not versus, but more like government and people. It's the same. Like there's a power dynamic. They make the rules.
And at the end, we are all humans. We are all the same, but because of background, not always because of knowledge actually, but just because of positions that give you power. It's just a position that gives you a certain power, then you tend to behave differently. Just about uniforms, actually. Uniforms also give you the feeling you are more powerful. Like if you didn't have that uniform, you would behave definitely differently. If you have a police uniform, you would feel definitely more powerful and you would use your power in a certain way. Now everything is about how you use that power, in a good way or in a selfish way.
Yes.
And that's the dangerous part.
Yeah, and you know what? From personal experience, actually, when I see a person in police uniform, it's like, wow, I think I have 100 pounds of cocaine in my bag, sometimes.
It's just about the uniform. Because if you see that same person without a uniform, you'd say, oh yeah, it's just
a normal
random person like me,
Yeah.
But just because of the uniform, you see that person differently, and the person in that uniform knows it. Because it's a perception you have, it's a human instinct.
Oh, it's amazing what a uniform can do to you. It's like being a doctor and being a nurse. Actually, we watched a movie about how they laugh about being a male nurse. Meet the Parents, was it?
Oh, and yes, that movie.
That movie, we watched it, and then it was like, wow, they were laughing because he's a nurse, and there's nothing wrong with that,
And they were just thinking, oh, are you really, like, you don't you don't consider another career? Are you really planning to be a nurse your whole life? And actually, to give a little background, everybody in the family of the
woman,
future wife, of the girl, of the girlfriend, they were all doctors. And so when she introduced her boyfriend, everybody are like, wow, he's just a nurse. And they are just laughing at him a little bit.
Yeah.
And they abuse a bit of their power dynamic because they are, let's say, they are from a more wealthy family. They are wealthier and more posh. So they definitely feel they have more power, and so they can say more things to him than him can say to them.
Yeah, that's right. And he's also trying to impress the his girlfriend's dad, so which makes the power so far away.
It worse.
Like, yeah. Even. So what do you think are the reasons? Well, not reasons actually, but what do you think are the reasons why people try to abuse their the power that they have? What do you think are the reasons why?
Well, I believe always when we have power, we tend to abuse to the power we receive from the position we have been given. So at some point, I believe some people, depending on your background or your mental stability, or even if you are a nice person or more like a less nice person or someone who doesn't care much about others, you will tend to at some point use your power but too much. So first, you will just use the power that you receive, and then you realize you can use more and more, and then you feel more and more powerful, and then it becomes like an addiction, and you will just use everything of the power. Imagine now you have the power of, I don't know, of traveling back in time. You can time travel. Well, maybe once you will just do it once because there was a really bad situation and you want to fix that situation. Something happened or you didn't pass your your exam. You didn't get your graduation, and so you just want to fix that. And so you will time travel and you will study more, or you will do, I don't know, something to be able to pass your school year. And then after you say, oh, it works well, and maybe later you will use a bit more, you will time travel more, and finally at the end you will end up time traveling all the time, just abusing the power. And then you will actually become like a sick person, because time traveling all the time is impossible. Imagine if you every time you don't like something, you time travel to fix it. Every time you don't like a situation, you time travel. Every time you feel embarrassed because someone, you feel that the situation is awkward and bad to you, you time travel. And then you will end up in a life where you will spend more time traveling than in the present.
Yeah.
And I believe when we have power, it's more or less the same. When you have power, you feel like no one can destroy you at some point. It depends, obviously, what kind of power you have, but I believe people like to have power. People like to feel important, and people like to feel respected. Everybody likes to be respected. Like, who doesn't like to be, when people just just almost run over you because you're just a fly? No. So it's the same, and that's the danger. You have to know the limit and don't abuse about the limit. It's the same if you had a pill to make you smarter. I think you watched Limitless,
Of
the
course.
movie Limitless.
Yes.
Well, it's exactly the same. He is using the power of the pill. First it was to finish his book because he was a broke writer and definitely not successful. And then after he used that limitless pill, I mean, it has a name actually in the movie, for doing everything else. He became a broker, and then at the end he wanted to be a president, the president of the USA. And it's exactly the same. And after he realized that pill, no, actually, it won't last for long, because the brain will just not. I mean, your brain won't be able to handle it for a long time, and you will become sick. And he had difficulties to understand that. Like, why? And it's the same. First, you use it for once, and then you use it more and more, because you know that, wow, I can control the situation the way I want. And you feel important, you feel people like you more, you feel smarter, and it's exactly the same. If we had the option to have this kind of pill, we would use it just once to be able to finish, I don't know, something like something you want to do, an interview, really difficult interview. Maybe it will be to pass your grade at school or whatsoever. And then you will have different situations that will happen over time, and you will use it more and more until you will use it every day, all day long, because you will always have more things you want to do, and your expectation won't be just to pass your school grades, but it will be also maybe becoming a president and then going to the space and then be I don't know, maybe probably you will your goal would be to be the richest person on the world, and then something else, and then going to Mars, and so you will abuse to that power, and this is the limit you have to see. I use my power the right way I'm supposed to use it. Power dynamic is my job. It's just to help everybody. I use just the power to help everybody, but I should also follow the same rule and I should show the example as well. But I should never abuse it or use it in a way that might put people in a feeling bad or in a bad situation. The power has to be used for the good of everybody.
Yeah, for the common good. I
Yeah,
completely
common
agree,
good.
actually, because you know, the reason why at the beginning people abuse the power is because for their own benefit. It's just, it's just me, 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 me. It's never about anybody else.
No, at the end of the day, yes, it comes from a good attention, but we are all selfish a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's human nature, and fortunately, otherwise, probably we would all die if we were not selfish. Animals are selfish as well, actually, but
But it escalates to greed. In the
yes,
end.
and that's a problem.
That's the problem that got here. With great power really does comes with great responsibility, as what the movie Spider-Man says.
Yes.
The most famous quote of Spider-Man, like, wow. But, he just spits, and not really spits, but produces web somewhere. I'm not really... I didn't follow that. Don't cancel me.
But yes, power comes with great
Yeah.
responsibility. And that's so true.
So true. So, and once if you have that great power, it is on you to decide on how to use it. The responsibility on deciding of how you use the power is on you, and your mental state, your emotional state, and just being you will decide how you use that power. And it's really a lot and intense. So yeah, for me, I'm glad that I only have power over myself at the moment, which is really nice. I don't really have to raise crotch goblins or probably manage people.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah.
good.
Yes.
But at the moment, try to imagine yourself. I am your manager, and I say, okay, I'm leaving, and you have been working in this company for 4 years. I think you are really good, and you are the ideal person to replace me. How will you do it?
Well, it's
Obviously, more power dynamic will happen, because when you're an employee, you have some power dynamic, like, I don't know, if you work in a restaurant, over the customers. Customers have power dynamic against, to the staff, the waiters, the waitress, but the staff has also some kind of power dynamics to the customers. Like there's always some limit. They can do and they can't, they have to pay, they have to be polite, and vice versa. And the same, you have power dynamic everywhere, at every level. But obviously, the more you go up on the level, the more power you will gain.
Yeah, so the question would be, how would I do it when my manager? Well, I would probably, if my manager was a really good one, well, if it was you, probably it is a good one. So I'll probably follow on your steps, and personalize it a bit. Because really, it doesn't really matter if it's you or not. But then, because you see, your manager influenced you too. So it makes sense to continue the legacy, to continue how your manager did it, but also add a little bit of yourself in there. Because, because it doesn't have to be the way their manager.
Keep the same tradition, the same way it used to. If it was in a good, if
But
it was
well. If it was working really well, then why change?
Yeah, if it was working well, obviously.
And then, it's like, and then you could add a bit of yourself, and then maybe you could also ask suggestions from from the people you would be supervising.
That's really, yeah.
Yeah, because
Doing a survey. Yeah.
yes, because it's nothing about me. It's nothing about them. It's about what the goal is. To be honest, it's nothing about like what I'm currently working at the moment. I have a new job, and then I still don't know what I'm doing. But then they teach me what I should be doing. Of course, there's a bit of power dynamic in there. I'm new, and they've been working there for what, a year, and so they'd be telling me like, this is what you're gonna do, and this is what you're gonna do, and then for me, I don't feel like there is a power. Well, there is, but then it's not obvious. It's because we have a common goal, and that is important. So yeah, and then they're really nice as well. So yeah. So yeah.
I believe everybody needs a power, a common goal. Common goal is also so important. Power dynamic is good, but you should also know why you have this kind of power. If you don't know, the same with parents. When your kid knows why they set some rules, and if it's for the good of them, they understand that and they apply it. But if they don't see the reason why, they would be a bit like they will be rebel. I mean, they will rebel to you. I mean, they will be a bit against it because they won't see the reason why. And it's the same everywhere. If you receive something that you feel it's unfair and you don't know the reason behind it, you won't understand, even if the reason is really good. But I believe transparency is also so important in power dynamic, because when you know the reason, you understand why now it's different, why it changed. But until you don't know the reason, you will think about different things. You will have rumors, and you will think maybe it's about selfish reasons of the company. Why now is, you don't have those freebies, I don't know, those free meals. And if you don't know the reason behind it, people won't understand. And it's not their fault. It's the fault of, the direction, of the big boss, or the one who set the rule. So transparency in the way we manage everybody else, and in the way we set the power. In power dynamic, transparency, it's so important.
So yeah, my last cent in this one would be, yes, power dynamics does exist. We can't deny that. But then when you use it properly, it's really good. And modeling transparency and having the same goal is really important as well. Mm-hmm. It's nothing about, hey, you grab me some juice. No, it's nothing about that, because
no.
You're something else if you're like that.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my last 2 cents in this topic. What about you?
Amazing. Yes, in my case, I believe I don't have too much to add. I believe you should always use your common sense, and always, it's not because the rules were it's not because the rules used to be like that before that you have to follow them. You always have to question yourself and to see if maybe nowadays it can be improved or been changed, and always see how you can make it better. Don't just follow the rules because they used to be set that way before by previous people, by previous generations, but always because the world is evolving all the time to be better and better. So always try to see if maybe now we can maybe make it better. Don't just follow the rules of power dynamic, but try to always make it better for everybody and use common sense. Do things only what you will like others to do to you. And I believe if you are nice and if you give a lot, it's like, what's the name? Pay it forward. So it's also important in power dynamic, actually, and in managing people, if you have to. Although I hate the word managing people. Sometimes people use that word. well, no one wants to be managed actually, because we are all we can all be managed by ourselves. We just sometimes need a bit of a discipline to be better at what we do, to make it better. And sometimes it's hard. Me too. I have hard time sometimes to discipline myself. So that's why I have to set rules for myself, by myself. And you should always do things to others, but explaining them, explaining why you do that. And never managing them, others, but just give rules. Don't do things in a way like, okay, I manage you because you are too stupid to understand that. Never do that, because no one likes that. Definitely not. So I believe, yes, power dynamic, it's important. And when power dynamic is not fair or not done right, then people will feel betrayed and will feel upset and sad. And the person who gave those kind of, the managers or the person who are the power dynamic ones, you won't be on the same page, and this is when problem will start. So transparency, communication, and obviously being you should always look at others and see if what you did was right. Like, I think it's nice to question yourself because sometimes you make mistake, but sometimes you realize, you understand what the mistakes you have done before others tell it to you. And that's always better to fix the mistakes before someone says to you. Before it's too late, actually. So, yes, that would be all for me. Happy day and happy power.